and welcome to this week's edition of Dream Car Garage. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Dream Car Garage. Now today we're going to look at a car that for some reason has been totally off my radar since it came out. We're going to look at the MG-ZS 180. Now it wasn't until very recently when I sold a car and I received a Rover 220 Coupe in part exchange, only a cheap car worth a few hundred quid. I didn't really think much of it, but it had tax, it had road tax, and it had some insurance, so I just thought I'd drive around for a little while. And I was really surprised at just how enjoyable it was to drive. It was an old car, it had rust on it, you know, obviously it looks quite dated now, but driving it felt really good. The engine was quite strong, it was a 2 litre, so it had about 147 bhp, but it felt strong, it felt taut, it felt quick, and it was a real pleasure to drive. And it got me thinking, if this ancient old Rover Coupe could feel this good to drive, then what would some of the more modern MGs be like that I've completely overlooked? For some reason, I've always thought that the MGs were a little bit tacky. Don't know why, just had a little bit of prejudice in my mind. But when I started looking into them, the more I looked at them, the ZS in particular, the more I started to like them. I started to like the sporty way that they looked. I like the spoilers. I like the grille, a little Bentley-esque with the meshing at the front. I like the spoilers. I just started to look at them. The more I looked into them, the more I read about them, the more I became engaged with wondering what they'd be like to drive. So we, Dream Car Guide, we got hold of one. It's a 2.5 litre V6 that develops, it's called a 180, but actually develops about 177 bhp. And from what I've read, looking at all the sites, looking at all the owners clubs, people really love these cars. I thought, well, you know, let's run one for a little bit to see what it's really like. Now the interesting thing with this, even though it has its roots back in a car that go right back to the early 90s, a Honda in fact, this car was based on the Rover 400. Now that was not an exceptional car when it came out. It was widely slated as being boring. The engines weren't overly reliable unless you had a Honda engine in it. And so if you're looking at a candidate to produce a performance car from, the Rover 400 is not the best example. And I can imagine that auto journalists at the time were getting ready back in the early 2000s, I think 2001 the first ones came out, to sharpen their pens ready to stick the knife in, just to get ready to give MG a really good kicking and a really good slating. But much to their surprise and everyone else's, MG produced a decent range of performance cars. Now they had three in particular. They had the ZR thing, which is a hatchback based on the old Rover 45. They had the MG-ZS, which is this one, based on the Rover 400, and they had the MG-ZT, which is based on the newer model, which was the Rover 75. I remember looking at it was a top gear, it was a fifth gear from back in the early 90s, about 2001, and they drove all the cars, and they particularly mentioned this car as being, you know, a really good drive. Now it wasn't actually this model, it was a model before that, so it wasn't, this one has got a new fascia, and it's got a new interior, and it's got quite a snazzy body kit on it, which we'll go into a little bit later. But I remember in particular, Tiffany Dell drove this car, and he praised it for being one of the best. Well, his quote was, "This is the best handling front-wheel drive car he's driven so far." So all that's left now is to drive and see what it's like. Now the first thing that impresses you when you get inside the car is, one, the steering wheel seems perfectly placed and comfortable straight away, and within a couple of feet you realise the steering is just wonderfully balanced. Not too light, not too heavy, very direct, but not fidgety. Really nicely weighted. Now pick up from zero is not blistering off the line. I guess you'd have to rev it quite a bit to do that. We're not going to do that here. So you kind of think you're going to get a sharp acceleration on the line, but the thing is with this, the acceleration climbs and climbs and climbs. There's no flat spots. It's smooth, linear acceleration right the way through. And within a couple of feet, you're travelling at a really decent rate. Very linear acceleration. A nice spread of power all the way through. I'm just crawling along at 10 miles an hour now. I'm going to let him get a little bit further ahead. I'm in second gear, 10 miles an hour, well actually 15 miles an hour. Nice and easy, taking time. And 1 foot down. Rocking in the seat straight away. Smooth. 4,000 revs. This handling is really fantastic. I'm just weaving bends together beautifully, easily. The steering is perfectly weighted, and the car feels very, very nicely balanced. Very, very nicely balanced indeed, in fact. In fact, this, I don't want to start exaggerating. I have no particular affinity to the MG, so there's no reason why I'd lie about this. But this is one of the nicest balanced cars I've driven in a long time. It's the steering's light but not overly light, and it's direct without being fidgety, and the weighting of it is just beautiful, and just boom, boom, bend to bend, corner to corner. Nice, just, it's not the most absorbent vehicle. Not the most absorbent of rides, but a bit like when we had the Clio 172, really aggressive little, angry little car. That one, it's an angry car. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's got an angry sounding engine. Woo! Angry sounding engine, and aggressive, yes, like it wants to fight, which is bizarre because it doesn't like it wants to fight. It looks too cute. This, by contrast, it looks like it's up for a fight because it's so big and butch, and with a big spoiler at the back and side skirts. It looks like it wants to fight. And I think when you put your foot down, it shows it's willing to oblige, but it's a bit more grown up. It's not so much a scrap outside in the playground as, okay, let's go to a gym, let's go find a ring and do it properly. That kind of fight. But it's not above giving you a good kicking in a car park as well as the mood takes it. And I think it's got the tools to give a good kicking for a good few cars. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's an overused word, but the car, it's a very, very... All those of you who are looking at this, who's heard of these cars, read a little bit about them, but thought, oh, should I dump some money on this or not? Put it this way, this particular model is a 2005 model, a late edition 2005, one of the latest ones they made. I think they made it one or two in 2006, I think, but I think this is on a 55 plate. So it's one of the latest models they produced. It's done just 44,000 miles, so it's like new. And how much does it cost? $3,995, just under £4,000. Virtually brand new, very low mileage, and absolute peach to drive. Absolute peach. It's, I don't want to use the word too lightly, but I think it's a performance car bargain. It's fantastic. It's in terms of ownership proposition, it's got 5 seats. It can hold 5 adults in relative comfort. The back's not bad. It's got a massive boot. Visually, I think it's got all the sporting car cues. Wonderful spoiler at the back. If you're not into that kind of stuff, they do come without the big spoiler. For me, the spoiler makes the car. The side skirts are too long. They make the car. The massive 18-inch alloys. They set the car. They fit to the wheel arches perfectly. The vents to the side. I don't think the vents actually do anything, but who cares? They're wonderful styling cue. It's a great car. It's a very great car. Dream Car Garage, double thumbs up.